After analyzing hundreds of wartime documents, training manuals, and battlefield reports, one thing became clear. British small arms weren't just weapons. They were a philosophy of war. Britain doubled down on old-school engineering and tactical discipline, and somehow it worked. British troops outgunned enemies with weapons that looked outdated, but never failed when it mattered most. Here are the 11 deadliest British guns of World War II. 11. Pattern 1914 Enfield Rifle. Chambered in .303 British, this bolt-action rifle held 5 rounds in its internal magazine and weighed approximately 4.1 kilograms. The effective range stretched to around 600 meters, making it a capable battlefield weapon. Now here's what's interesting. The Pattern 1914 was actually designed before World War I, but was largely manufactured in American factories. When World War II erupted, Britain needed every rifle it could get its hands on, and the Pattern 1914 came out of storage. While it was mostly supplanted by the more modern Lee-Enfield series during World War II, the Pattern 1914 served extensively with Commonwealth forces and Allied troops who were equipped with British weapons. Its strength and reliability made it a dependable backup when more modern rifles weren't available. Reserve units, Home Guard forces, and training battalions all relied on this sturdy veteran of the Great War. 10. Besa Machine Gun. Originally a Czechoslovak design, the Besa was adopted by Britain for use in armored vehicles. Unlike most British weapons, the Besa was chambered in 7.92 by 57 Mauser, though some versions did use .303 British. Belt-fed and recoil-operated, it could fire between 450 and 600 rounds per minute, weighing between 9 and 12 kilograms depending on the model. The Besa wasn't carried by infantry. It was mounted in British tanks and armored cars, providing reliable suppressive fire with its belt-fed ammunition system. This gave British armored forces considerable firepower during engagements. 9. Vickers Machine Gun. Based on the legendary Maxim machine gun design, the Vickers was chambered in .303 British and featured a water-cooled, recoil-operated mechanism. Rate of fire ranged from 450 to 600 rounds per minute, and while the gun itself weighed 15 kilograms, the complete setup with tripod and water jacket could reach 50 kilograms. It had an effective range up to 2,000 meters with sustained fire capability. That's 2 kilometers of continuous, devastating firepower. The Vickers was known for extraordinary reliability and the ability to sustain prolonged firing without overheating, absolutely essential factors for defensive positions and support fire. The water cooling jacket allowed continuous operation that would have melted air-cooled guns. There are documented cases of Vickers guns firing continuously for hours during defensive battles. British machine gun crews would keep them fed with ammunition and water, creating an impenetrable wall of lead that stopped German advances cold. Number 8. Sten Submachine Gun. Chambered in 9x19 Parabellum, the Sten was a blowback-operated, open-bolt submachine gun with a rate of fire between 500 and 600 rounds per minute. It weighed around 3.2 to 3.5 kilograms, fed from side or bottom-mounted 32-round magazines, and had an effective range of 100 to 200 meters. Now, the Sten has a reputation, and not all of it's good. Designed for quick and low-cost production, the Sten was made from stamped metal with minimal machining required. Britain was fighting for survival in 1940 and 1941. Traditional manufacturing couldn't keep pace with demand. The Sten could be produced in massive quantities with minimal resources, which meant Britain could arm vast numbers of troops, commandos, and resistance fighters across occupied Europe. Yeah, it was infamous for jamming. Yeah, it had issues with accidental discharges. But it was also effective in close quarters and urban warfare, and it was available when Britain desperately needed weapons. The Sten armed British paratroopers at Arnhem, Commandos in Norway, French resistance fighters in Paris, and partisan groups throughout occupied Europe. Its simplicity meant resistance fighters could maintain and even manufacture crude copies in underground workshops. Sometimes, ugly weapons win wars. 7. Bren Light Machine Gun. Derived from the Czech ZB-VZ 26 design, the Bren was chambered in .303 British and featured a gas-operated, air-cooled mechanism. Rate of fire was a controllable 500 to 520 rounds per minute. It weighed approximately 10.15 kilograms, and it fed from a distinctive top-mounted curved box magazine holding 30 rounds. Effective range extended up to 600 meters. The Bren was the backbone of British light machine gun units and arguably one of the best light machine guns of World War II. That top-mounted magazine created the Bren's distinctive silhouette and allowed for ergonomic loading and barrel changes. The gun was praised for its controllability, accuracy, and robust construction that worked across various terrains and climates. British soldiers often described the Bren as a mini machine gun for infantry squads. It provided the perfect balance between portability and sustained fire support. A two-man team could carry and operate it effectively, providing covering fire that could suppress enemy positions or support advancing infantry. The Bren proved so effective that it continued service with British and Commonwealth forces well into the 1990s, adapted for the 7.62mm NATO cartridge. When a weapon design served effectively for over 50 years, you know you've got something special. 6. Howell Automatic Rifle. The Howell was a semi-automatic conversion of the SMLE rifle, inspired by the American M1918 Browning automatic rifle. Chambered in .303 British, it featured a gas-operated semi-automatic action, fed from a 20-round detachable box magazine and weighed around 5 kilograms, which was heavier than the standard SMLE. Developed in the UK, the Howell was Britain's attempt to give infantry more automatic fire capability during shortages of dedicated automatic weapons. Remember, Britain entered the war without widespread semi-automatic infantry rifles, unlike the Americans with their M1 Garand. The Howell was produced in limited quantities and saw restricted use, but it represented an interesting step toward automatic fire in British infantry arms. It showed British engineers were thinking creatively about how to maximize firepower with existing weapon stocks. 5. Charlton Automatic Rifle. Like the Howell, the Charlton was a semi-automatic conversion of the Lee-Enfield SMLE bolt-action rifle. Chambered in .303 British, it utilized the original 10-round magazine, but was heavier than standard Lee-Enfields due to the conversion parts. Here's what makes this weapon special. It was developed in New Zealand. When you're fighting a war halfway around the world from Britain, you can't always wait for weapons shipments. New Zealand engineers took matters into their own hands. Due to shortages of semi-automatic rifles, New Zealand developed the Charlton conversion to transform existing SMLE rifles into automatic weapons. It wasn't widely produced or used in large numbers, but it represented Commonwealth ingenuity in maximizing available resources. The Charlton was effective as a portable automatic rifle, meant to provide infantry with higher fire rates in the absence of dedicated semi-auto rifles. 4. Lisle Commando Carbine. Now here's where things get interesting. The Lisle wasn't chambered in .303 British like most British rifles. It fired the .45 caliber ACP pistol cartridge. It was a bolt-action suppressed rifle weighing around 3.5 kilograms with an effective range of 100 to 150 meters, feeding from a 10-round magazine. The Lisle carbine featured an integral suppressor and was exceptionally quiet, one of the quietest firearms of the entire war. This made it ideal for stealth kills and sabotage missions behind enemy lines. Due to its specialized role and complexity, only a few hundred units were produced. This wasn't a weapon for every soldier. It was a tool for commandos and special forces operating in secretive missions where silence was paramount. But why did the British military, which had access to some of the most advanced engineering and manufacturing capabilities in the world during the 30s and early 40s, deliberately choose to continue using bolt-action rifles like the Lee-Enfield as their primary infantry weapon throughout the entire war, even after they witnessed the Americans equipping every single infantryman with the semi-automatic M1 Garand rifle starting in 1936? And even more puzzling, why did British soldiers who actually used both weapons in combat often prefer the outdated bolt-action Lee-Enfield over the more modern semi-automatic American rifle when given the choice? Well, the British choice to stick with the Lee-Enfield wasn't about being behind the times or lacking technology. It was a deliberate tactical decision based on practical battlefield experience and a different understanding of infantry combat. First, let's talk about the Lee-Enfield's actual capabilities. A trained soldier could fire 20 to 30 aimed shots per minute. With the Lee-Enfield, this was the famous Mad Minute drill. The M1 Garand, while semi-automatic, typically achieved similar practical rates of aimed fire in combat conditions, because soldiers still needed to aim between shots. Second, and this is critical, the Lee-Enfield held 10 rounds versus the Garand's 8. British military doctrine emphasized sustained, accurate fire from infantry sections working as coordinated units. The Bren gun provided automatic fire, while riflemen provided accurate volume fire with their Lee-Enfields. Third, reliability and simplicity. The Lee-Enfield's bolt-action mechanism was incredibly simple, with fewer moving parts than gas-operated semi-automatics. This meant easier field maintenance, fewer malfunctions in harsh conditions, and soldiers could keep their rifles running with minimal training. Fourth, manufacturing economics. Britain was fighting a total war and needed to maximize production efficiency. Lee-Enfields were cheaper and faster to manufacture than semi-automatic rifles, and Britain was already set up for Lee-Enfield production. Switching to a completely new rifle would have disrupted production at a critical time. But here's the real insight. British infantry tactics emphasized unit fire discipline and coordinated section attacks led by the Bren gun. The rifle section was built around the Bren, with riflemen supporting the machine gun. American doctrine was different, as they expected each rifleman to provide more individual firepower, hence the Garand. Neither approach was wrong. They were different solutions to the same problem, reflecting different tactical philosophies. The British proved their system worked by fighting effectively on every continent throughout the war. And when the British soldiers who'd used both weapons were asked which they preferred, many chose the Lee-Enfield because of its reliability, capacity, and the confidence that comes from using a weapon you trust completely. Number 3. Lee-Enfield Number 5. Jungle Carbine. Developed late in the war, specifically for Pacific theater jungle warfare, the Number 5 was a lighter, shorter version of the Number 4. Chambered in .303 British with a bolt-action mechanism and 10-round magazine, it featured a shortened 19.3-inch barrel, compared to the Number 4's 25 inches. Weight was reduced to about 3.1 kilograms, and effective range was approximately 600 meters. The Jungle Carbine featured a distinctive conical flash suppressor to reduce muzzle flash, which was critical in jungle combat, where muzzle flash could give away your position in dense vegetation. It also had a slimmer barrel profile and a lighter overall build to enhance maneuverability in dense jungle conditions. Fighting in the jungles of Burma and Southeast Asia was unlike anything soldiers experienced in Europe or North Africa. Dense vegetation, close quarters combat, extreme humidity, and the need to move quickly through thick undergrowth all demanded a more compact weapon. However, the Jungle Carbine wasn't perfect. It suffered from perceived increased recoil due to its lighter weight and shorter barrel, and there were durability concerns. Some soldiers felt the increased recoil affected accuracy, especially during rapid fire. Despite these issues and limited production numbers, it was favored by Commonwealth forces fighting in Burma and other Pacific theaters. 2. Lee-Enfield SMLE No. 1 Mark III. An earlier iteration of the famous Lee-Enfield series, the SMLE retained the classic 10-round box magazine and smooth bolt action that defined British rifles in both world wars. Chambered in .303 British with a bolt-action mechanism, it featured a barrel length of around 25.2 inches, weighed approximately 3.9 kilograms, and had an effective range of up to 600 to 700 meters. The SMLE Mark III was known for its fast-cycling bolt, allowing soldiers to fire more rapidly compared to contemporaries like the German Mauser rifles. The smooth bolt action was legendary. Experienced soldiers could work it without even thinking, cycling rounds while keeping their sights on target. The HT designation in some variants indicates it was designated to use high-test proof ammunition. Its open sights were reliable and suitable for the practical ranges of infantry combat. Though mostly replaced by the No. 4 Mark I during World War II, the SMLE Mark III saw continued use, especially early in the war and in secondary roles. Many soldiers who'd trained on the SMLE before the war continued using it throughout the conflict, comfortable with the weapon they'd carried for years. The SMLE Mark III represented the culmination of British rifle development from the Boer War through World War I and into World War II. It was the rifle that held the line at Mons in 1914, fought through Gallipoli, the Somme, and Passchendaele, and then served again when Britain faced invasion in 1940. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn. Everything I've told you about these weapons, their specifications, their capabilities, their combat records, all of that is accurate. But there's something crucial that military museums and history books often miss. The deadliest British gun of World War II wasn't just the weapon itself. It was the combination of the weapon, the training, and the doctrine that employed it. British small arms doctrine emphasized section-level tactics where every weapon type had a specific role. The Bren gunner provided suppressive fire. The rifleman provided accurate volume fire and protected the Bren. The section worked as a coordinated unit, not as individual soldiers with individual weapons. American forces, by contrast, emphasized individual firepower and fire superiority. Every soldier had a semi-automatic rifle and was expected to deliver maximum individual firepower. Both doctrines worked, but they reflected fundamentally different philosophies about infantry combat. Here's what that means. A British soldier with a Lee-Enfield fighting as part of a well-trained section with a Bren gun was often more effective than an American soldier with a Garand fighting alone. The weapon doesn't make the soldier. The system makes the soldier. This is why British forces could compete effectively against German forces equipped with more modern weapons, and why British commandos and special forces were so feared despite often using relatively simple weapons like the Sten and Lee-Enfield. Superior training and superior tactics trump superior equipment. The lesson here extends beyond World War II. In modern warfare, we often focus on technology, better rifles, better optics, better equipment. But the British experience in World War II proves that training, doctrine, and unit cohesion matter more than having the newest and most advanced weapons. But why did British snipers using the scoped Lee-Enfield No. 4 Mark I T variant with the No. 32 scope, many of which were precision converted by the legendary luxury gunmaker Holland & Holland, typically known for making expensive sporting rifles for aristocrats, consistently achieve longer range kills and higher accuracy ratings than German snipers using the supposedly superior Karabiner 98K with its advanced Zeiss optics, even though the German rifle had a longer barrel, used a more powerful cartridge, and was equipped with theoretically better scopes. And furthermore, why did British sniper training programs produce such effective marksmen in shorter training periods than comparable German programs? despite having what appeared to be less sophisticated equipment. Well, the British sniper advantage wasn't about the rifle. It was about the entire system of sniper training, selection, and employment. Let me explain. First, British sniper training emphasized practical fieldcraft over pure marksmanship. German sniper schools focused heavily on precision shooting at known distances. British training emphasized camouflage, stalking, observation, range estimation, and field judgment alongside shooting skills. A British sniper needed to be good at shooting, yes, but he also needed to be invisible, patient, and capable of operating independently for extended periods. The best shot in the world is useless if the enemy can see you and shoot back. Second, the Lee-Enfield's 10-round magazine gave British snipers a critical advantage in practical sniping situations. German snipers with their Kar 98K had 5 rounds. If a British sniper missed or needed to engage multiple targets, he had double the capacity before needing to reload. Third, and this is crucial, a Lee-Enfield's bolt design allowed for faster cycling without breaking the sight picture. An experienced British sniper could work that bolt incredibly quickly, chamber a new round, and be back on target faster than his German counterpart. Fourth, British number 32 scopes, while simpler than German Zeiss optics, were specifically designed for combat conditions. They were more robust, less prone to losing zero when knocked around, and easier to field service. German scopes were precision instruments and sometimes too precise for battlefield conditions. But here's the real secret. British sniper selection and training emphasized the right personality traits. They looked for soldiers who were naturally patient, observant, and independent thinkers. British sniper training was shorter than German programs, not because it was less thorough, but because they selected candidates who already had the right temperament and focused training on essential skills. The Germans often tried to train anyone to be a sniper through intensive technical instruction. The British selected natural hunters and observers, then gave them the tools and skills they needed. Different approaches, and the British one proved more efficient. British snipers also operated with more independence and flexibility than their German counterparts. They were trusted to make tactical decisions, choose positions, and operate without constant oversight. This produced more effective snipers who could adapt to changing battlefield conditions. Number 1. Lee-Enfield No. 4 Mark I Rifle. Adopted in 1941, the No. 4 Mark I was the standard British infantry rifle during World War II, replacing the early SMLE series. Chambered in .303 British, it featured a bolt-action mechanism with a 10-round internal magazine, a 25-inch barrel, muzzle velocity of approximately 750 meters per second, effective range up to 700 meters, and weight of 3.9 kilograms. The No. 4 Mark I featured critical improvements over earlier Lee-Enfields. It was designed for simplified manufacture, with a stronger squared-off receiver and a free-floating heavy barrel that improved accuracy. The aperture rear sight was adjustable from 300 to 1,300 yards, with a hooded front sight for protection and reduced glare. But specifications alone don't explain why this rifle deserves the No. 1 spot. Let me tell you why the No. 4 Mark I was truly the deadliest British gun of World War II. First, ubiquity. The No. 4 Mark I armed more British and Commonwealth soldiers than any other weapon. It was the infantry rifle from 1941 onwards. It fought in North Africa, Italy, Northwest Europe, Burma, and the Pacific. Every British soldier knew how to use it, maintain it, and fight with it. Second, that legendary 10-round capacity. When German soldiers had 5 rounds in their Mausers, and American soldiers had 8 in their Garans, British soldiers had 10 rounds in their Lee-Enfields. In a firefight, that extra capacity could mean the difference between life and death. Third, the famous Mad Minute capability. British soldiers trained to fire 20 to 30 aimed shots per minute with the Lee-Enfield. That's 1 aimed shot for every 2 or 3 seconds, including working the bolt. German infantry watching British soldiers fire their bolt-action rifles sometimes thought they were facing semi-automatic weapons because the rate of fire was so high. Fourth, reliability. The No. 4 Mark I worked everywhere. Desert sand, jungle humidity, Arctic cold, European mud, and it didn't matter. The Lee-Enfield just kept working. Soldiers knew they could depend on their rifle absolutely, and that confidence translates to combat effectiveness. Fifth, international production. The No. 4 Mark I was produced not just in Britain, but extensively in Canada and the United States as part of Lend-Lease arrangements. This equipped Commonwealth and Allied forces across the globe, creating standardization and logistics advantages. Sixth, the sniper variants. Some rifles were converted to sniper variants. The No. 4 Mark I-T fitted with the No. 32 scope. Many conversions were performed by Holland & Holland, one of the most prestigious gunmakers. These sniper rifles achieved legendary accuracy and equipped some of the war's most effective snipers. The No. 4 Mark I served British forces from the desperate days of 1941 through final victory in 1945. It armed the soldiers who stopped Rommel in North Africa, fought through Italy, landed on D-Day, liberated Europe, and defeated Japan in Burma. After the war, the No. 4 Mark I continued service through the 1950s and beyond, proving its design excellence. It armed British forces in Korea, Malaya, Kenya, and other conflicts. Some variants remained in service into the 1990s. The Lee-Enfield No. 4 Mark I wasn't flashy, it wasn't revolutionary. It was exactly what it needed to be, a supremely reliable, accurate, and effective infantry rifle that British soldiers could trust with their lives. And there you have it, the 11 deadliest British guns of World War II. So if you could travel back in time and join a British infantry section in World War II, which of these 11 weapons would you want to carry, and why? Drop your choice in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into British weapons of World War II, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video.